And I want you, just seeing your faces here, it's like I'm seeing my environment. And since I started, since I arrived here about 8 years ago, and started moving around, different states. And I'm sure pretty much every one of you know this, even though we most of the time now want to talk about it. But Idaho doesn't have a great reputation outside there. Yeah. So everywhere I go, when I meet people, when they ask me where you're from, and I say I'm from Boise, Idaho, they look at me with a face, and they ask me a simple question: who did you piss off? And because they think that an African, a black man, a Mexican or a Chinese or somebody different, somebody who's not Caucasian, or somebody who speaks with an accent, somebody who has a name that ends or sounds funny, cannot live in Idaho. And it keeps kind of bringing the same thing that I heard when I was coming to the United States about 8 years ago. I never knew where Idaho was, and I asked a lady, and this lady told me that I was going to die here. So I came to Idaho knowing that you're going to kill me. And so that's a terrible reputation we have out there, up until today. And this is the environment that I love to be around, because this group is 1 out of 3 people in Idaho that care about refugees, immigrants, the people who are different. And this is terrible. It's a terrible thing. And again, I'll tell you one thing I never tell you, because I've been a prisoner of words and said for so many years. But I'm going to tell you that I get racially abused and discriminated about 4 times a week. At work every night, people prank call me. And actually last week, some people called me Indian and some people called me Mexican and told me to go back to Afghanistan. But still, it doesn't bother me a lot, because I've been discriminated worse in South Africa. And that's just in Africa, where I looked almost like everybody else. So I've been discriminated with Africans who look dark as me because I spoke English, so they told me I'm not white. I've been discriminated by white English folks who I greeted them in Afrikaans, and they said, why are you speaking the Boers language? So they discriminated me for that. And the Boers don't want me to speak to them in English. So discrimination, it doesn't really bother me, but this is the environment we have to be around. The few people that you know that care and understand you well, and then you expound from there, and you attract more people. So every time I've been discriminated, I don't rush or attack. I educate and tell people who am I for real. So I always try to be, because that way I will help people in my life. But to start this thing, that was just a thing, but to start it, I know we all have cell phones. Who doesn't have a cell phone in here? Can you put your hand up if you don't have a cell phone? Everybody has a cell phone. So can we put our cell phones in the air, please? Let's participate in this little, let's put up our cell phones in the air, everybody. Everybody. I know you all care about refugees, you all care about non-violent, a very peaceful world. So can we put them on the table? I would ask you to turn them off, but I don't want to hear a lot of droid. So let's put them on the table right in front of us, because there is a big agenda about these cell phones that we're using up here. I'm standing here talking about refugees, and most of the time, a refugee stand up and talk about refugees, people look at them and say, who is he? Did he even go to school? He's not qualified to talk about refugees. But I'll tell you the truth, I'm more qualified than more people you'll ever see. Because most of the things that you learn and read and study in schools, I have actually lived them. So many refugees have gone through the same journey as I have. I've lived in more than 8 refugee camps. I've lived in more than 10 countries, running and trying to find, freedom. I've been tortured, attempted to be killed, imprisoned, kidnapped, and all these things. So it's a lot so that qualifies me to tell you my experience, because that's the core of everything that you learn. Without us, there'll be nothing to learn about. You can tell us about the bureaucracy part of things, the technicality and all those things, but we'll tell you our stories, because that will give you at least a path that you can follow to know how to help refugees well. You are the ones with the programs, we are the one with the voice and the stories. So I would really ask you to pay attention to some of the things that I'm going to talk about. So I'm part of the Refugee Congress, like we've heard, but in truth, that's a very, very small part of who I am. So since I was 16, I started speaking for refugees. Since I was 16, I was being imprisoned and tortured and beaten because I was outspoken. So when we talk about freedom of speech, it's not just because the country offers it to you that you speak, but it's when it's denied of you that your strength is seen. And I've spoken in Zimbabwe. I've been accused of trying to assassinate the president, which was not true, just a waste to get me killed. Most of my friends have been kidnapped, deported, and killed, and some of them even disappeared, just because they spoke in favor of refugees. So being part of the Refugee Congress, which I'm going to show you guys, I want most of you to try to look at it, see if it's something that you can support. Pretty much, I think it's something that you can support. And so I'm going to walk you through the website, which is part of the UNHCR Washington, D.C. And maybe when you get home, you can just browse and try to see what it's all about. So this started about 3 years ago, at the 60th anniversary of the Geneva Convention. And the UNHCR brought about 60 refugees from all 50 states to represent. So these refugees were starting from World War II all the way to people who just came about a week ago. And so I'll just walk you quickly into this so that I don't take much of the time because I have a few more things to talk about. So this is the website, if you can look on the screen. And so if you go on to UNHCR Washington, UNHCR Washington, I'm on the wrong one, so I'll get that. UNHCR, just a second. Okay, so if you go on UNHCR Washington, which is, am I there? I hate being, it's really hard, but it works this time. And then you go to the far corner up here, say get involved, and then the first link will be the first one on the drop down will be Refugee Congress, and you just open that page, and that will tell you almost everything that we've been doing for the past 3 years. On the side, quick links up here on the side. There is so much that I'll walk you through, but for now I want you guys to watch a little video, which kind of give a little pic of what we've been doing or what we did in December when we were there.
From an African village to the capital of the US, it's a long journey.
I'm originally from Sarajevo. For 3 days in December, refugees from around the United States gathered in Washington for the second UNHCR